The delivery driver looked at my sister, then at the name on his tablet, and said, "I'm going to need to see Claire Bennett's ID." Natalie didn't even blink. "She's busy," she said, reaching for the box cutter on my kitchen island. "I'm Natalie. The package is mine." The driver pulled the tablet back before she could touch it. "That's not what the original sender says." He turned the screen toward me. The order had been changed 3 days earlier. The recipient line now said Natalie Bennett, but underneath it, in the delivery notes, was a message from my aunt. "Please confirm Claire signs for this herself. This is for her first home, in memory of her father." The package was a custom walnut dining table that cost more than $2,000. My sister had spent the entire morning telling everyone our aunt bought it for her. You're listening to Drama Z Reddit. And this is the story of how my housewarming party became an audit of my own family. I was 34 when I bought my first house. It wasn't a mansion. It was a 2-story brick place outside Columbus with 3 bedrooms, an unfinished basement, and a backyard that looked as though the previous owner had tried to grow both vegetables and car parts. But it was mine. I had saved for 8 years. I skipped vacations, drove the same Honda until the air conditioner began making a sound like a trapped pigeon, and took every overtime project my employer offered. I worked in procurement for a regional hospital network. My job was to compare contracts, track orders, verify delivery records, and notice when numbers that looked almost right were actually very wrong. That skill would eventually save me. Unfortunately, it did not stop me from giving my sister administrative access to my gift registry. Natalie was 4 years younger than me, and had the kind of personality people described as magnetic when they liked her, and exhausting when they didn't. She could walk into a room where she knew no one, and leave with 3 invitations, a free dessert, and someone promising to help her move. Growing up, I was the reliable one. Natalie was the one who needed understanding. When she forgot an assignment, our mother said she was creative. When I got a B, Mom asked whether I was distracted. When Natalie lost her first apartment because she had ignored 3 months of utility notices, Mom called it a difficult transition. When I paid the reconnection fee, Mom called me a wonderful sister. I told myself I didn't resent it. That was one of my more persistent lies. Our father died when I was 26. He had been the only person in the family who occasionally looked at Natalie's latest crisis and asked the dangerous question, "What part of this was your responsibility?" After he was gone, that question disappeared from our family vocabulary. I kept playing the role he had quietly warned me about, the fixer, the dependable daughter, the sister who could handle more because she always had. When I finally closed on the house, Natalie cried harder than I did. She hugged me in the empty living room and said, "Dad would be so proud of us." Us. I noticed the word, but I let it pass. At the time, the room smelled like fresh paint and cardboard. Blue painter's tape covered half the walls because I had labeled where each piece of furniture would go. Bookshelf, desk, guest bed, dining table. Natalie laughed at the labels. "You manage your life like a warehouse. That is why my boxes arrive where they're supposed to." The joke did not age well. Natalie offered to organize my housewarming party. She said I had done enough and deserved to enjoy something without managing it. It sounded generous. It also sounded like exactly what I wanted to hear. I gave her access to the guest list, the catering account, and the online registry I had created at a local home store called Hearth and Pine. The registry was mostly practical: towels, lamps, a cordless drill, cookware, and a few things I would never have bought for myself. Natalie suggested adding more expensive items so relatives could contribute together. "A housewarming is supposed to help you build a home," she said. "Stop acting guilty because people love you." That was another sentence that sounded kind on the surface. She added a walnut dining table, an espresso machine, a patio set, a stand mixer, and a set of copper cookware. I almost removed them. Then Aunt Diane called and told me not to. My father's older sister lived in Pittsburgh and had never had children. She and Dad had been close, and after he died, she became the person who remembered things about him no one else did. She remembered the way he took his coffee, the songs he hated, and the fact that he had once promised to buy me a real dining table when I stopped eating dinner over the sink. "I want to do this," she said. "Let people celebrate you." So I left the table on the registry. The week before the party, deliveries began arriving while I was at work. Natalie had offered to stay at the house because she was between freelance projects. She designed social media posts for small businesses, although the exact number of businesses seemed to change depending on who was asking. Every evening I came home to more boxes. Natalie labeled them with blue painter's tape. Kitchen. Patio. Open at party. I thought it was sweet that she had copied my system. The first sign that something was wrong was the espresso machine. My cousin Rachel had texted me a photo of it with 3 heart emojis and the words, "You are officially too fancy for drip coffee." But when I came home, it wasn't there. I asked Natalie if the delivery had been delayed. She kept looking at her laptop. No, it came. Where is it? I took it to my apartment. I waited for the rest of the explanation. It did not arrive. You took my housewarming gift to your apartment? Natalie sighed as if I had interrupted an important meeting. Rachel bought it for me. She literally texted me that it was for me. She probably meant both of us. We do not live together. I organized your entire party, Claire. People asked what I wanted too. That was the first time she said it. People asked what I wanted too. I asked which people. She accused me of interrogating her. Then Mom called before I had even finished the conversation. Natalie says you're upset about the coffee machine, she said. I'm not upset about a coffee machine. I'm upset because she took a gift addressed to me. Your sister has worked very hard on this party. She chose a caterer and sent invitations. That is still work. I'm not denying that. I'm saying the espresso machine was purchased from my registry and delivered to my house. Mom lowered her voice. You just bought a home. Natalie is struggling. Do you really need every single thing? There it was. The family equation I had spent my entire life pretending not to see. Anything I earned became proof that I could afford to lose something. Anything Natalie lost became proof that she deserved to be given something else. I told Mom I wanted the espresso machine returned before the party. She said I was making an expensive appliance more important than my sister. Natalie returned it 2 days later, but she left it in my garage without speaking to me. The box had been opened. The water tank had coffee residue in it. She had already used it. I should have removed her access to everything then. Instead, I told myself the party was 4 days away. I didn't want a family explosion. I didn't want guests walking into tension. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. That was my point of weakness. I didn't just want peace. I wanted everyone to agree that I was reasonable. Natalie understood that better than I did. The morning of the party, I found 2 boxes in my upstairs hallway labeled Natalie. One contained the copper cookware. The other contained a stand mixer. I carried both downstairs. Natalie was arranging flowers in the kitchen. Why is your name on these? Because they're mine. Who bought them? Aunt Diane and Uncle Rob. I stared at her. Aunt Diane bought the dining table. She bought several things. Why would she buy you housewarming gifts for my house? Natalie set down the flowers. You keep saying my house like I'm a stranger. You don't live here. I helped you find it. You sent me one listing after I was already under contract. I helped with the move. You arrived after the movers. Her face changed. It was subtle, but I had seen it since childhood. Her eyes cooled, and her voice became calmer. That was when Natalie stopped trying to persuade you, and started constructing the version of events she would later repeat to other people. I think buying this house has made you territorial, she said. Everyone has noticed. Everyone? Mom, Rachel, Aunt Diane. People feel like you're treating the family as guests instead of letting us share this with you. It is my home. You are guests. She gave me a sad smile. Not angry. Sad. It was a performance designed for an audience that had not arrived yet. I knew you'd say something like that. By noon, 35 people were in my house. Natalie moved through the rooms as though she owned them. She accepted compliments on the decorations, gave tours of the bedrooms, and told people which walls she thought should come down between the kitchen and dining room. Twice I heard her call the smallest bedroom my office. The first time, I corrected her. The guest room. She laughed. Claire hasn't accepted my design vision yet. People laughed with her. I did not. The gifts were arranged near the fireplace. Several had Natalie's name written on the tags. Not next to mine. Instead of mine. I pulled Rachel aside. Did you put Natalie's name on the espresso machine? Rachel looked confused. No. I ordered it for you. Did she tell you it was for her? She said you told her she could use it whenever she wanted. I said no such thing. Rachel's expression shifted. Before she could answer, Natalie appeared beside us. There you are, she said brightly. The delivery driver is outside. The driver was standing beside a truck with a long, flat package secured inside. The dining table. Natalie hurried ahead of me and told him where to place it. Then he asked for my ID. When Natalie claimed the package was hers, he showed us the order history. The original recipient was Claire Bennett. 3 days earlier, someone had changed it to Natalie Bennett. The delivery address remained my house. The driver explained that the sender had called that morning after receiving an automated notification about the name change. Aunt Diane had asked the company to verify my identification before releasing the table. Then the driver read her message. These confirm Claire signs for this herself. This is for her first home, in memory of her father. Natalie folded her arms. Aunt Diane must be confused. The driver looked at her, then at me. I spoke to her personally. I showed him my license. He delivered the table. Natalie disappeared before it was fully inside. I found her 20 minutes later in the guest bedroom, speaking rapidly into her phone. When she saw me, she ended the call. "Who changed the recipient name?" I asked. "I did." The answer came so easily that I almost doubted I had heard it. "Why?" "Because Aunt Diane told me I could have some of the gifts. She just told the delivery company the table was specifically for me." "I'm not talking about the table. You put your name on the cookware and the mixer too. Because those were for me. Show me a message from her saying that." Natalie's mouth tightened. "Not everything is documented, Claire. For most people, that might have sounded normal. To someone who spent her workday reviewing purchase orders, it sounded like a flare fired into the night sky." "Who else bought you something?" "I don't remember every conversation. You remembered well enough to change the names." She walked toward the door. I stepped out of the way, but I did not let the conversation end. "Give me your registry access." "I'm in the middle of hosting your party. You're no longer hosting anything." Her voice dropped. "You're going to embarrass yourself." "No, I'm going to find out what you changed." She looked over my shoulder. 2 cousins were standing in the hallway. Then Natalie did what she had always done best. She changed the subject from what she had done to how I was reacting. "You're cornering me during a family event over gifts," she said loudly. "Do you hear yourself?" Mom came upstairs within seconds. "What is going on?" I explained. Mom listened with the exhausted expression of someone being forced to tolerate unnecessary details. When I finished, she looked at Natalie. "Did you misunderstand what Diane said?" Natalie's eyes filled with tears so quickly it would have impressed a stage actor. "She said I had been so helpful and deserved something too." Mom turned to me. "There, it sounds like a misunderstanding. She changed the recipient names. You're acting as though she stole your identity. She redirected gifts. They're household items, Claire. Then why are they being taken to her apartment?" Mom lowered her voice. "Because she doesn't have what you have." That sentence ended the party for me, even though the guests stayed another 2 hours. I walked downstairs, thanked everyone for coming, and stopped opening gifts. Natalie told people I was overwhelmed. Mom told people I had been under a lot of pressure from the move. By the time the last guest left, the story had already become that I had suffered some sort of emotional episode because sharing attention was difficult for me. Natalie left with the copper cookware. I didn't stop her. That decision bothered me more than the cookware itself. I had watched her carry a box from my house, knowing it had likely been purchased for me, and I had remained silent because I was afraid that stopping her would make me look dramatic. The next morning, I logged into the registry. My password no longer worked. I reset it through my email and discovered that the administrator settings had been changed. Natalie had added her own address, phone number, and delivery preferences. She had also created a second recipient profile. Natalie Bennett, home co-host. There were 9 changes in total. 3 gift recipient names had been changed from mine to hers. 2 delivery addresses had been redirected to a storage facility across town. 1 patio set had been marked as returned, with the refund issued as store credit. The store credit had been emailed to Natalie. A set of bedroom furniture I did not recognize had been added to the private section of the registry. And beside my home address, she had added a note. Shared residence beginning August. It was June. Natalie had never asked to move in. I downloaded the entire change history. At work, I would have called it preserving the audit trail. At home, sitting at my kitchen island in yesterday's clothes, it felt like finally admitting my sister was not confused. She was building a plan. I called the storage facility and asked whether any deliveries had been made under my address. The manager would not give me account details, which was appropriate. But when I provided the tracking numbers from the registry, she confirmed that 2 packages had been accepted for an account under Natalie Bennett's name. A patio set and a walnut media console. Both had been purchased by relatives from my registry. I called Hearth and Pine. The customer service representative confirmed that Natalie had used the co-host access I gave her. The system treated her changes as authorized because I had not limited her permissions. That part was my responsibility. I had handed her a key and assumed she would only open the doors I expected. The representative froze the remaining orders and sent me the original purchase records. The patio set had been purchased by 3 of my father's former coworkers. The media console had been purchased by Aunt Diane. The copper cookware had been purchased by Mom. That surprised me. I called her. "You bought the copper cookware?" A pause. Yes. For me or Natalie? Another pause. For the family. That is not an answer. It was on your registry, but Natalie said you had agreed she could take it. I did not. Mom sighed. She helped you. So you bought an $800 gift from my registry and agreed she could remove it from my house? You have a fully equipped kitchen. I had 3 pans from college, and one of them was missing a handle. You know what I mean. No, Mom. I know what you keep implying, because I bought a house, anything taken from me doesn't count. She went silent. Then she said your sister has to leave her apartment by the end of the month. That was the first truth anyone had given me. Natalie was being evicted. Not because she had lost work, as she later told relatives. She had stopped paying rent after deciding the apartment had mold. She withheld the money without putting it into escrow, without notifying the property manager correctly, and without responding to the court paperwork. She assumed the problem would somehow become negotiable. It did not. Was she planning to move into my house? I asked. Temporarily. She never asked me. She was waiting for the right time. She put shared residence on my registry. Because deliveries were already being scheduled. Deliveries of my gifts. Claire, please don't make her homeless to prove a point. That was the moment I understood the gifts were not the whole scheme. They were props. Yes, if Natalie's name appeared on furniture, deliveries, registry records, and mail sent to my address, she could present her arrival as something already agreed upon. Mom was helping her turn a decision I had never made into a family expectation I would look cruel for refusing. Did you tell anyone Natalie was moving in with me? Mom hesitated. Only a few people. What did you say? That you two were helping each other. I laughed once. It was not a happy sound. What exactly was Natalie helping me with? The party? The move? The house? She changed labels and ordered flowers. Why do you have to reduce everything she does? Why do you have to exaggerate everything she does until it becomes a debt I owe? Mom ended the call. 10 minutes later, Natalie texted me. Mom says you're digging through private information. This is getting scary. I replied with one sentence. Return every item purchased from my registry by Friday. She answered immediately. You need to calm down before you destroy this family over furniture. I had spent years responding to messages like that with paragraphs. This time, I saved a screenshot and said nothing. Over the next 3 days, I made a list. Not an emotional list. Not a list of every childhood grievance. A factual list. Item. Purchaser. Original recipient. Changed recipient. Delivery location. Current status. I contacted each purchaser individually. I did not accuse Natalie of theft. I asked them to confirm what they had intended. Most were uncomfortable. Some answered quickly. Aunt Diane said every item she purchased was for me. My father's former coworkers said the patio set was for my house. Rachel confirmed the espresso machine was mine. Mom refused to answer in writing. Then my cousin Melissa sent me an email that changed everything. It had been sent from an address that looked like mine. The display name said Claire Bennett, but the actual email address contained an extra letter. The message thanked relatives for supporting our new family home. It said Natalie had contributed $18,000 toward the down payment and would be moving into the upstairs guest room. It also said that because I was overwhelmed by the financial strain of homeownership, Natalie would coordinate gifts and household purchases. At the bottom was a link to the private registry section. Natalie had not merely taken gifts. She had invented an investment. She had told my family she helped buy my house. The lie explained everything. Why guests congratulated both of us. Why people asked Natalie about renovations. Why some gifts had her name. Why Mom kept saying I should share. Natalie had created a version of my home in which she had earned access before ever asking for it. I searched my inbox for the fake address. There were 6 forwarded messages from relatives who had replied to it by accident. In one, Uncle Rob asked whether the $18,000 came from the money Dad had left us. The fake Claire replied yes. Dad had left us equal amounts from a small life insurance policy. I had used mine as the foundation of my savings. Natalie had spent most of hers during a year when she traveled, changed apartments twice, and invested in a friend's online boutique that lasted 11 weeks. Now she was telling people she had put that money into my house. I called Natalie. She answered with, "Are you ready to apologize?" I found the email address. Silence. The one pretending to be me. More silence. Then she said, "I never pretended to be you. The display name is my name. That's how group registries work." No, it isn't. You're twisting this. You told people you gave me $18,000. I did contribute. You bought flowers and spent 2 afternoons at my house. I spent months helping you emotionally. Emotional support is not a down payment. You wouldn't have bought that house without the family encouraging you. I actually pulled the phone away and looked at it. That is your argument? My argument is that you didn't do this alone. I applied for the mortgage alone. I paid the down payment alone. I signed every document alone. You always have to make yourself the hero. This is not a story, Natalie. It is a deed. She began crying. Not quietly. You have no idea what it feels like watching you get everything. There it was. Not confusion. Not gratitude. Not fairness. Comparison. In Natalie's mind, my house was not something I had worked for. It was evidence that the universe had favored me again. And if I had more, she believed taking from me was a form of correction. I want the items returned, I said. I want you to email everyone and correct the lie, and you are not moving into my house. Her crying stopped. You can't do that. I just did. Mom already told my landlord I had somewhere to go. That was not her promise to make. I changed my mailing address. Change it back. I've already had packages delivered there. Without my permission. You gave me access. To a gift registry, not my home. Her voice sharpened. If you force me onto the street, everyone will know what kind of person you are. That sentence scared me. Not because I believed she could take my house. She could not. It scared me because I realized she was prepared to make herself vulnerable just to make my boundary look cruel. I contacted a local attorney for a short consultation. She told me to document that Natalie did not live at the property, had no permission to move in, and had no ownership interest. She also advised me to return any mail addressed to Natalie and avoid accepting personal belongings on her behalf. She did not solve the problem. She simply helped me understand which doors I needed to close myself. I sent Natalie a formal email. You do not have permission to reside at my property, store belongings there, receive mail there, or represent that you have an ownership interest. Please correct all statements claiming otherwise. I copied Mom. Natalie forwarded the email to the family group chat. She added one sentence. This is what my sister sent me after I helped her for months and asked for a temporary place to stay. Within an hour, I had 11 messages. 2 cousins said I should let her stay. 1 aunt said family should not communicate like corporations. Uncle Rob asked whether we could all calm down. Mom sent a voice message saying Dad would be ashamed of how I was treating Natalie. That one hurt. It hurt enough that I almost called her. Then Aunt Diane called me first. Your father would be ashamed, she said. But not of you. I sat down on the floor beside the unopened dining table. I don't know how to make them understand. You're still trying to make them understand before you allow yourself to act. That sentence stayed with me. I had been treating agreement as permission. As long as my family misunderstood me, I felt obligated to keep explaining. But Natalie did not need to agree that the house was mine. Mom did not need to agree that the gifts were mine. The registry records, purchase confirmations, mortgage documents, and delivery receipts were not waiting for a family vote. I gave Natalie until Friday to return everything. Friday morning, the copper cookware appeared on my porch. The box was wet from rain. The patio set did not return. The media console did not return. The store credit was already spent. Instead, Natalie posted a long message claiming I had invited her to move in, accepted her financial contribution, and then changed my mind after using her to plan the party. Mom supported her publicly. That was Natalie's second victory. The first time, she took objects. The second time, she took the story. Several relatives believed her because the lie was emotionally easier than the truth. It let them view the conflict as 2 sisters fighting instead of one sister impersonating the other. A family friend who had offered to help me install shelving canceled, saying he did not want to be involved. One cousin told me I had always been jealous of Natalie's social skills. Another asked why I cared so much about proving the house was mine unless I had something to hide. I stopped reading messages. Then Hearth and Pine called. Natalie had attempted to return the Walnut media console from the storage facility. Because the order had been purchased from my registry, the refund would normally go to the purchaser. But Natalie had requested store credit again. This time, the account was frozen. The manager asked whether I wanted the item returned to my house. I said yes. Then she mentioned something else. Natalie had placed an order using the first store credit. A queen-sized bedroom set. Delivery address, my house. Recipient, Natalie Bennett. She had intended to arrive with furniture. Not a suitcase. Not a request. Furniture. That was my lowest point, though it did not look dramatic from the outside. I stood alone in the guest room, staring at the strip of blue painter's tape I had put on the wall weeks earlier. Guest bed. Natalie had crossed out guest and written Natalie's. I peeled the tape off. For a few seconds, I wanted revenge. I wanted to post every screenshot. I wanted to humiliate her. I wanted the entire family to admit I had been right. Then I realized that was still allowing them to decide whether my boundary was valid. My goal was not to win the family group chat. My goal was to make sure Natalie could no longer build a life inside mine without permission. I canceled the bedroom delivery. I removed her from every shared account. Changed the garage code. I returned her mail. I informed the registry purchasers that the remaining orders were frozen while the store corrected the records. Then I invited the people directly involved to my house on Sunday. Not the entire family. Aunt Diane, Mom, Natalie, Rachel, Uncle Rob, and Melissa. I told them I would explain the gift issue once, provide the records, and state what would happen next. Natalie arrived 20 minutes late. She walked into my dining room, saw the walnut table fully assembled, and froze. Aunt Diane was sitting at one end. Mom sat beside Natalie's empty chair. On the table were 6 folders. Natalie laughed. "You actually made packets? I work in procurement." This is insane. No, insane was inventing an $18,000 down payment. Mom stood. "We are not going to attack your sister." I looked at her. "Then sit down and listen before deciding who needs protection." She sat. I began with the simplest question. I asked each person who had purchased a gift to state the intended recipient. Rachel said the espresso machine was for me. Aunt Diane said the table and media console were for me. Uncle Rob confirmed the patio set contribution was for my house. Melissa confirmed she had received the email claiming Natalie contributed to the down payment. Natalie leaned back. "Everyone knew I was going to be living here." "No," Melissa said carefully. "We were told you already lived here." Natalie looked at me. "You told people that." I placed the fake email printout on the table. "This came from an address you created. You can't prove I created it." I placed the registry administrator history beside it. The same recovery phone number appeared on both accounts. Natalie's number. Her expression changed. "It was for party coordination. You used my name. Because people respond faster to you." That was the first time someone in the room visibly recoiled. I showed the delivery changes next. The espresso machine. The copper cookware. The patio set. The media console. Each original recipient. Each edited recipient. Each timestamp. Natalie said I had given her permission. I showed the messages where I demanded the espresso machine back. She said those messages were taken out of context. Rachel checked the dates on her own phone. "They're not," she said. Natalie changed strategies. She turned to Mom. "Tell her what we discussed." Mom's face went pale. I waited. Mom clasped her hands. "I thought Claire would let Natalie stay temporarily." "That was not my question," I said. "Did you know she was telling people she contributed to the down payment?" Mom looked at Natalie. I knew she said she had helped. $18,000. I didn't know the exact number. Natalie interrupted. "You knew what I meant." Mom shook her head. "No. I thought you meant the money from Dad." "I was talking about Dad's money." "You spent your share," I said. Natalie's face hardened. "That doesn't mean you deserve to end up with everything." Aunt Diane spoke for the first time in several minutes. "Claire did not receive your share." "She had savings." "Yes," Aunt Diane said. "Because she saved them." Natalie pushed her chair back. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. She gets praised for everything. I make one mistake and everyone acts like I'm a criminal." "You made an email address in her name," Melissa said. "I was helping." "You redirected my gift," Aunt Diane said. "I was going to use the furniture in the house." "You were not invited to live here," I said. Natalie looked around the table as though searching for the version of the room where she still controlled the mood. Then she said the sentence that finished what the documents had started. "You have 3 bedrooms. I have nowhere to go. Why should you get to decide alone?" The room went quiet. I answered calmly. "Because ownership is not a punishment you serve until someone else needs something." Mom began to cry. She said we had all handled things badly. I refused the plural. I gave Natalie access to a registry. That was careless. I avoided confrontation because I wanted everyone to think I was reasonable. That was my mistake. I looked at Natalie. But I did not change recipient names. I did not impersonate anyone. I did not invent a financial contribution. I did not redirect deliveries. Those choices belong to you. Natalie accused me of enjoying the humiliation. I told her I had tried to resolve it privately. She said I should have tried harder. That almost made me laugh. Instead, I slid the final document toward her. It listed what had already been returned, what the store had recovered, and what remained outstanding. The patio set was still in her storage unit. The first store credit had been spent. 2 smaller gifts were missing. She had 14 days to return the patio set and reimburse the store credit. If she refused, the purchasers and retailer could decide how they wanted to proceed. I would not hide the records or ask anyone to absorb the loss. Then I gave Mom a separate envelope. It contained the garage remote she had given Natalie without telling me. Mom stared at it. "You went through my purse?" "No, Natalie left it in the storage delivery paperwork. The facility photographed the remote beside her identification when she checked in." Another trace. Another detail Natalie had assumed no one would connect. I placed the remote on the table. "You no longer have access to my house," I told Mom. "That can change someday, but not while you believe loving Natalie requires overruling me." Mom whispered, "I was trying to keep her safe." "You were trying to keep her from experiencing the consequences of her decisions." "That is what mothers do." "No, that is what enablers do." Natalie stood. "You're choosing furniture over family." I looked at the table my aunt had bought in memory of my father. "No, I'm choosing reality over the version of family where you take something and I'm punished for noticing." She left. Mom followed her. Uncle Rob stayed long enough to apologize for repeating Natalie's story without asking me. Melissa offered to send a correction to everyone who had received the fake email. I told her I would write it myself. That night, I sent one factual message. I did not call Natalie names. I did not describe her eviction. I did not include every private failure she had ever had. I stated that Natalie had no ownership interest in my house, had not contributed to the down payment, and did not have permission to live there. I attached the correction from Hearth and Pine, confirming that recipient and delivery information had been altered through the co-host account. Some relatives apologized. Some did not. One aunt said the truth could have been shared more gently. I decided not to ask how gently a person must correct being impersonated. The patio set was returned 9 days later. 2 chairs were missing, and 1 cushion had a stain, but it came back. Natalie agreed to a repayment arrangement with Aunt Diane for the store credit she had spent. Mom paid the first installment for her. I told Mom that was her decision, but it would not restore her access to my home. For almost 3 months, Natalie and I did not speak. She stayed with Mom, then rented a room from a coworker. She told different versions of the story to different people. In some, she had misunderstood. In others, I had promised her a place and backed out. In one especially creative version, the fake email had been an automated registry feature. I stopped correcting every version. That may have been the biggest change in me. I used to believe that if I found the perfect words, no reasonable person could misunderstand me. Now I understand that some people misunderstand you because the misunderstanding benefits them. 6 months after the party, Mom asked whether she could visit. She came alone. She did not bring Natalie's problems with her. She did not ask me to forgive anyone. She did not say we both made mistakes. She looked at the walnut table and ran her hand along the edge. "I should have asked you," she said. "Yes. I was afraid Natalie would have nowhere to go." "I know. I made that fear your responsibility." "Yes." We did not hug dramatically. She stayed for coffee. It was a beginning, not a repair. Natalie sent me one message around Christmas. "I'm sorry things got out of control." I replied. "Things did not get out of control. You made choices. I am open to a real conversation when you are ready to name them." She did not answer. The guest room is still a guest room. I turned one corner into a small workspace, and I kept the rest simple. A bed, a lamp, a narrow dresser, and no furniture with anyone else's name on it. The blue painter's tape is gone from the walls. I saved one small piece in the drawer of my desk. On it, in Natalie's handwriting, is the word Natalie's written over my original label. I don't keep it because I'm angry. I keep it because it reminds me how quietly a boundary can disappear when someone writes over it and you are too worried about seeming selfish to replace the label. Last Sunday, Aunt Diane visited. We sat at the walnut table and ate takeout because I still haven't become the kind of person who cooks elaborate family dinners. She pointed underneath the tabletop. There, carved into the wood, was a short message from her. "Claire, make room for people who respect the invitation." I ran my fingers over the words. Then I set 2 plates on the table. Not 6 because guilt told me to. Not 4 because someone had made plans for my rooms. 2 because 2 people were having dinner in my home, and for the first time, that ordinary decision felt entirely mine. Subscribe to Drama Z Reddit for more stories about the moment silence ends and boundaries begin.